Hello, and welcome to Cedars Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Johanna Munson, and I am the worship associate for our virtual service today, alongside our minister, Zackrie. Before we start, let's pause to acknowledge that members of our congregation occupy the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of Coast Salish tribes. The homelands of the Suquamish, Duwamish, Clallam, and Chimicum people were ceded under duress through the Point Elliott and Point No Point treaties. We are grateful guests on these lands and affirm Indigenous sovereignty, both past and present. This acknowledgement does not substitute for the need to build authentic relationships with modern-day members of these tribes and to learn about their living culture and history. Our faith community is sustained by the generosity of our members. Your contribution will nourish the spiritual growth of our community through weekly worship and ongoing programs that cultivate connection, belonging, sharing, and caring. Included in the video description and displayed on the screen is information to make a contribution to Cedars through our PayPal account. Please take time either now or later in the service to make a contribution to help sustain Cedars. Your gifts are greatly appreciated. Cedars is committed to being a welcoming and inclusive community. In all the beauty of languages, cultures, and skin tones that come together in your uniqueness, we welcome you. In all the ways you experience and express gender, we welcome you. In the beauty of who you love and how you love, we welcome you. With all the religious and ethical traditions that inform your spiritual life, we welcome you. Whether you come feeling whole, feeling broken, or anywhere in between, we welcome you. No matter how long you've been away, or how soon you will return, we welcome you. You are invited to join us with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. We welcome you today and always. Last night was Halloween, or All Hallows Eve, as it used to be called. In ancient Celtic culture, this time of year is called Samhain, the end of summer, and it marks the beginning of the dark winter. It is said that the veil between the worlds of the living and the dead gets thin at this time of year, and the spirits and fairies can pass more easily through that veil. The belief that the souls of the dead will come back this one time of year, and that they should be welcomed and honored, is a strong tradition in other cultures as well. Carving turnips, or now pumpkins, putting candles out to guide the spirits, dressing up in disguises to ward off bad ones, many of those ancient traditions continue to this day. It's a broad generalization, but many Americans do not like to talk about death, but it is one of the things we all have in common. Humans hold a variety of beliefs about what happens after death, and even whether any part of us continues after the body ceases to function. There are 4 common beliefs, and I share them with you in the hope that identifying your own belief provides you with some sense of relief about the reality that we will all die. The first belief is that this is all there is. When our heart stops beating, our existence ends, full stop. For those who hold this belief, there should be no fear about death and what happens afterwards, as there will be no consciousness of the fact of death. Of course, you may have concerns about the process of dying, and that is a subject for another day. My dad was in this camp, and yet in the last week of his life, he was definitely having conversations with his father. Another belief is that the soul, essence, spirit, whatever you want to call it, is separate from the body and continues in some form after death. There is a possibility that what comes after is not pleasant, depending on your actions in this life, and so there may be apprehension around that. Recovering Catholics will know what I mean. Luckily, the Unitarians came along in the 1500s, offering the belief that there is one God, and then the Universalists appeared on the scene in the 1700s and said everyone is loved by that God. Some humans came to believe that a part of us continues and that whatever happens to that part after death is a pleasant experience. I can feel the relief. The last belief is that our soul continues to exist and that at some point we can choose to reincarnate and come back to the physical world in a different form. I am in this camp, and I find my existence is greatly enhanced by considering the possibility that I have lived other lives. Have you ever met someone and immediately felt that you've known them before? Do you have recurring dreams or visions of another era, or feel really attracted to certain countries or areas of the world? It is not beyond the realm of possibility to me. In any case, we come up against the concept of the impermanence of our current existence. I offer a quote from the book, The 5 Invitations by Frank Ostasecki, who founded the Zen Hospice Center in San Francisco. Impermanence is humbling. It is absolutely certain, yet the way it will manifest is completely unpredictable. We have little control. We can either shrink in fear from this predicament or choose a different response. The gift of impermanence is that it places us squarely in the here and now. We know that birth will end in death. Reflecting on this might cause us to savor the moment, to imbue our lives with more appreciation and gratitude. We know that the end of all accumulation is dispersion. Reflecting on this might help us to practice simplicity and discover what has real value. We know that all relationships will end in separation. Reflecting on this might keep us from being overwhelmed by grief and inspire us to distinguish love from attachment. When we embrace impermanence, a certain grace enters our lives. I dedicate the lighting of this chalice to the possibility that our loved ones still exist in some form and that their love can transcend the veil.
As we come together to worship, we remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because they are our brothers and sisters, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, and to live lives full of love and goodness because that is how we will all become the best that we can be.
Shall we gather at the river where bright angel feet have trod, with its crystal tide forever flowing by the throne of God? Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. On the margin of the river, washing up its silver spray, we will walk and worship ever all the happy golden day. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Ere we reach the shining river, lay we every burden down. Grace our spirits will deliver and provide a robe and crown. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Soon we'll reach the shining river, soon our pilgrimage will cease, soon our happy hearts will quiver with the melody of peace. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river.
This time of year, this season that we find ourselves in now, is considered by many people to be a liminal time. A moment between the bounty of summer and the barrenness of winter. A threshold where the sheaves of life are laid bare. A time when the veil between life and death has thinned, and briefly, in pause, we glance beyond the haze and mist to deeper truth. And so, as we come together, may we take this chance to reflect on what this season has to offer us. What mysteries are waiting? What truths are ready to be revealed as we come together to worship?
I'm going to tell you a story today about a little girl with a very big name. And the little girl with a very big name was Amaya Adele Rose Lafayette Olympia Jones. Now, most of the time, Amaya loved her name. But sometimes, the sheer length of her name was a big problem for her. Once, a substitute teacher at school read her name and said, "Could your parents not make a decision?" That made Amaya feel very bad. More often, though, those times when you have to bubble in something, there was never enough room. It took forever. And most recently, Amaya's teacher had decided that everyone needed to write their whole name before they could go outside for recess. Amaya's name was very long. Amaya Adele Rose Lafayette Olympia Jones. It meant that Amaya never got first choice for the swing. She was always last in line for the slide. So she went home pretty sad that day. And her dad saw her and said, "Amaya, what's wrong?" And she said, "Why? Why is my name so long? It's not fair." And her dad said, "Come sit down on the couch by me and I'll tell you the story of how you got your name." And her dad started with Adele. He said, "Adele was your great-grandmother, and she had beautiful fingers, and she played the piano so well. And more than that, she was kind and gentle to everyone she met." And Amaya smiled, and she said, "I play the trumpet. Maybe I got that from her." Dad said, Probably. Then he said, "And Rose was your grandmother, and Rose set a welcome table for everyone. Rose was an amazing cook, and every day in my childhood, I would go over and get a snack from her kitchen. And on Sundays, she would make a gigantic meal for everyone in the neighborhood. Everyone was always welcome at Rose's table." And Amaya said, "Well, I really like chocolate chip cookies, and I'm learning to make them. Maybe I got that from her." And her dad said, Probably. He said, "Lafayette was your great-grandfather, and Lafayette was a farmer, And Lafayette loved the earth. He liked to be outside, and he liked to make things grow. And he loved to take care of his family. And Amaya snuggled in and she said, I like to make things grow. I have a plant in my room. Maybe I got that from him. And her dad smiled and said, probably. And then her dad said, Olympia, you are not related to, but Olympia Brown is a famous Unitarian. She was the first woman ever ordained in the Unitarian tradition, and she was a great fighter for women's rights. She helped women get the right to vote, and she was always out there working for social justice. Then Amaya said, I went to the climate march. I want to change the world. Maybe I got that from Olympia. And her dad said, probably. And then Amaya said, what about Amaya? Where did I get Amaya? And her dad said, Amaya is just you. It is unique to you, and maybe someday you're going to do stuff, and so people will want to name their children after you so that they can remember you after they're gone. And Amaya said, probably. And then she leaned in for one more snuggle and she said, Dad, I love it when you tell me this story. Thank you. That's my story for today, and I encourage you to think about who you're named for. Who do you want to remember? Who do you look up to? Who do you feel connected to in the past?
"2020 has been a year like no other for many of us. Let's take a few moments to acknowledge and grieve the many losses we have experienced this year that may be wearing us down and taking a toll on us as a society. Please respond with deep peace of the infinite to you. For those whose basic human rights have been threatened, including Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and the LGBTQ community. For those who have lost jobs or businesses or have not been able to find sufficient work. For those who are putting their own lives on the line so that others may be cared for. For those who have missed celebrations, big and small, new babies being born, birthdays, graduations, weddings, first days of school. For those who have been unable to be with a dying person and to be comforted in grief by family and friends. For those who are living in poverty and experiencing hunger. For the parents managing work and school and home, for the students isolated from friends, teachers, and activities, and for the teachers juggling it all somehow. For those living alone and for those living with many, maybe too many. Please take a moment and share any other losses that are in your heart in the chat section. For those of you who are not able to comment, please join us at the coffee hour where we can hold you in tenderness. Deep peace of the running water to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the infinite peace to you.
Not many people know this about me, but when I'm facing uncertainty around a decision I need to make, I have a practice that I use to help me gain a little bit of clarity or insight. What I do is I go to my bookshelf and I find the deck of tarot cards sitting there. And I think of the situation or choice that I'm facing and I begin to shuffle the cards. As I shuffle them, I breathe deeply and try to notice how I'm feeling. What emotions are in my body? Where am I feeling them? Am I anxious or excited? Is that feeling in my gut a feeling of dread, or am I just hungry? Do I feel hopeful, or am I hesitant? In this initial stage of shuffling the cards and checking in with my body, I'm often unsure as to which emotions are which. It's all a jumble. And I'm really not sure as to what I should do or want to do in the situation. But after shuffling sufficiently, I begin to draw cards. Sometimes I just draw one. I take that card and I look at it. And I ask myself, what symbols or message this card has to offer me? Sometimes I'll draw 3 cards and place them next to each other in a row and begin to contemplate what their relationship to each other signifies and how I feel about what they're telling me. Other times I'll do a fancy spread, arranging the cards in a complex order based on a pattern that I found in a book or online. Generally, when I'm doing this, I use only the major arcana cards and exclude the lesser arcana, the cards known as cups, wands, swords, and pentacles. This is just a personal preference. There's no reason other than the fact that I'm just much more familiar with the meaning of the cards in the major arcana. Cards like the Fool, Magician, High Priestess, and others speak to me in a way that feels compelling. They tell stories that I'm familiar with and allow me a chance to understand how I feel in relation to the stories they offer me. The Fool, for instance, is a card that's symbol speaks of carefree new beginnings. It's the image of a young man setting out on a journey, his belongings packed in a bindle hoisted over his shoulder. The sun is at his back as he prepares to walk right off a cliff. Sometimes that's relatable. Next, we encounter the magician. He stands, one hand pointed down toward the earth with the other toward the sky. A gesture that expresses the mystic maxim of as above, so below. Before the magician stands a table with 4 tools associated with the elemental forces. Air, a sword. Fire, a wand. Water, a cup. And earth, a pentacle. The symbolism of this card is mastery, manifestation, willpower, and balance. Things that many of us seek after in our own lives. Continuing to the next card, we come to the High Priestess. This card encourages us to use our intuition. She sits clothed in blue on a throne in front of 2 pillars with a veil stretched between. On the veil hangs 10 pomegranates. This veil and its pomegranates are a reference to the myth of Persephone. This is the barrier between the world of the living and the dead, and the High Priestess sits as guard and guide at this threshold. As I pull these cards and reflect on my own uncertainty, it feels as if I'm invited into a conversation. For me, this practice isn't about knowing the future. Instead, it's about taking time to slow down and consider my own thoughts and feelings in relation to the situation I face. If the situation requires undertaking a new challenge or doing something that is completely new to me, and I draw the card of the Fool, I might pause and ask myself if I'm being careless or if I haven't thought things through all the way. This pause is important, and the card allows me to take that breath to ask the questions. Or perhaps in this situation, I draw the card of the Magician. And when I see this card, I pause again and might consider what skills or knowledge do I bring to the table? Or what new skills or knowledge do I need to master so that I can bring them to the table? Whatever the situation, or whichever card, is really irrelevant, for me at least. For me, this practice is about slowing down to ask questions and to contemplate my own orientation to the circumstances. This practice of using tarot cards in this way developed after an experience I had when I was probably about 18 years old. At this time in my life, I was active in a Wiccan group that met to celebrate the 8 major holidays associated with pre-Christian Celtic paganism. These holidays explored themes of life and death, light and shadow, and the interconnected nature of existence. During this time of harvest, in the time of year that we find ourselves in right now, falls a holiday named Samhain. This holiday's main theme calls celebrants to reflect on the connection between the living and dead. Just as the earth sits between the green lusciousness of summer and the cold barrenness of winter, we are encouraged to pause and locate ourselves in the liminal space between life and death. It's also a belief in the cosmology surrounding Samhain that this time of year is a time when the world of the living and the world of the dead are closest, and that the veil that separates these two realms, the veil that the High Priestess sits in front of, can be glimpsed beyond. In this time when the veil is thin, people are encouraged to take time to reconnect and honor our dead loved ones and seek the wisdom that they have to offer us. Building shrines of photos of our ancestors and leaving food offerings for the dead are customary practices. But so is using tools of divination like tarot cards and rune stones to seek guidance from the other side of the veil. These customs were very much a part of the group that I was involved with. We'd gather in a grove of trees near a spot where the river meets the estuary waters of the bay. We'd build a fire as the sound of a drum and voices chanting filled the air. We'd chant chants like, "She will bring the buds in spring and laugh among the flowers. Summer's heat, her kisses are sweet. She sings in leafy bowers. She cuts the cane and gathers the grain when fruits of fall surround her. Her bones grow old and wintry cold. She wraps her cloak around her." As the drum beat on, we chanted faster and faster, moving in a clockwise circle around the fire. At the height of the cacophony, a voice cried out from among us, "Ground!" As if a rug had been ripped out from under us, our legs all seemed to give way, causing 20 or so people to suddenly fall to the ground. We laid there for a while, out of breath, panting, laughing hysterically. When the laughter finally subsided, a black cauldron filled with water was brought into the middle and placed near the fire. And one by one, we each took turns reaching into the water to pull out a black stone. Each stone had a golden figure of a rune painted on it. This rune was said to be a message that our ancestors wanted to pass along to us from the other side of the veil. And our goal was to come to an understanding of what this message meant to us personally. This was our task for the year ahead, to decipher what this symbol had to offer us. This way of seeking guidance from unknown forces fascinated my young mind. The next week, I went and bought my first deck of tarot cards and began developing the practice that brought me to my current way of using them. For me, today, I'm not always convinced that there is anything necessarily supernatural about such tools as runes or tarot cards. And yet, I still find them to be helpful in penetrating the veil between my conscious and unconscious mind, allowing me a chance to wrestle with the circumstances of my life and come to an understanding that might have otherwise escaped me. I want to offer you a chance to engage in a bit of this practice of divination for yourself. In a moment, I'm going to invite us into a time of meditation. This is meant to be a time for us to seek clarity about something we are feeling uncertain about in our lives. Where are you on life's journey? Where is it that you want to be? What wisdom or guidance or understanding do you need in this moment? What situations or choices do you need some clarity around? What would your ancestors tell you if they could speak from beyond the veil? Let us find out together. Let's start by making yourself comfortable. Wherever you're at, just settle your body, mind, and spirit. Be at ease and breathe with me. Breathing in and out. And in. And out. And one more time, in. And out. As you continue to breathe, let your eyes soften their focus as the muscles of your face and neck and shoulders all relax. Feel yourself grow heavy, sinking down into the present, into the sense of peace and contentment that surrounds us. Feel that deep and abiding connection that permeates our existence. Let your thoughts calm, like the ripples on the surface of a pond calm, sinking back into the water, gentle, easy, fluid. And as these ripples subside, feel yourself more and more at ease, more and more relaxed. Allow your eyes to finally drift shut as we continue to float here together. Now that you are at ease, now that the ripples of your mind have stilled, I invite you to imagine yourself as a golden link in a chain, a loop of light that begins and ends with itself. As you imagine yourself as this golden link, start to notice the other links of light that are connected to you, the people and relationships that have filled your life. breathe, and notice all the connections you share. Connections with people, living and dead, that stretch through time and space. Reflect on all those who have come into your life and out of your life. The people who have caused you to be here in this very moment. As you continue to breathe and contemplate your place in this chain of life, allow your mind to call up a situation or choice you would like some clarity around. Something that you have been uncertain about how to proceed with, or maybe even start. It could be something big or small. Whatever it is, let it come to the surface of your mind now, rising from the depths of your being to the surface of your consciousness. What is it? What is coming up in this moment for you? Take a moment. Hold this decision, this situation in your mind. As you hold it, notice your place in the golden chain. Notice the links that pool at your heart and soul. What wisdom comes from noticing these relationships? Which way are you feeling yourself being pulled? What will you do? As you allow these questions to come bubbling up, consider the card, the High Priestess. This woman who sits at the threshold between the world of the living and the dead. Consider how she urges us to use our intuition, to go with our gut. Think about this in relation to all of these questions. What is your intuition telling you you should do? Let it be your guide. What is it that these relationships, these links you are connected to, telling you to do? Let them be your guide. As you consider these relationships, the direction that you're being pulled in, take a breath. And in your mind, think of a number between 1 and 25. Don't second guess yourself. Let your intuition guide you. What number is calling to you? Now that you have your number, take one more deep breath with me. And notice again all of those links that you are connected to. Remember that you are never alone. Remember that you are but a link in a chain that stretches through eternity. Pause here and give thanks for all that has gotten you to this moment. Recognize the strength that is available to us when we recognize these relationships that we share, the wisdom that is available to us. And now, keep your number in mind, and let us begin our journey back to the waking world, to the world of full awareness. Still relaxed, but becoming more and more aware of your body. Take a breath. Let yourself become again aware of the room that you're in. Begin to wiggle your fingers and your toes, moving your hands, your legs, your feet. Wake yourself up. Feel yourself awakening with new energy and a new understanding. Allow your eyes to open. Be here, in the here and now, fully awake, fully aware. Now that we're back from our journey together, it's time to learn the significance of your number. In a moment, a video will play. In this video, each number that you have chosen has been assigned to a rune. The rune that corresponds to your number is your message to contemplate. It's your message brought from beyond the veil of mystery. Whether that veil represents the divide between the conscious and unconscious minds, or the barrier between life and death. Whatever the source, this message is now yours to wrestle with and explore your orientation towards its symbolism and meaning. What wisdom does it have to offer you? What clarity comes from engaging in this contemplation? What things do you accept or reject in this message? Take the time to figure these things out, to ask these questions of yourself, and see what is being revealed to you. As I said earlier, the rune you selected is yours to wrestle with and make sense of in your own way. Whether you believe that this is a message from beyond or simply something dredged up from your own thoughts, I hope you will take the time to pause and consider what wisdom is being offered to you for the year ahead, to the glory of life.
All my memories of love hang upon high stars. All the souls I've lost to tears, now the autumn jars. And the air around me here thickens with their song. Sing again their nameless tunes, sing again and strong. Willows in September touch the water clear, set among the rushes tall of the flowing year. Rising up from sunlit past comes the shadowed sigh, running toward me silently, love to fortify. Many are the graceful hearts hung upon this tree, and it seems there's room for mine on these branches free. And the sky above the tree, whether wet or bright, is my ease and comforting, my good news and light. All my memories of love.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we hold in our hearts until we are together again.
In this liminal time, we have paused to consider the wisdom that is hidden, waiting to be revealed to us. May this time and the spiritual practice that we have engaged in be a source of wisdom and guidance in the days ahead. Our service this day has ended, but our service to the world and one another begin anew.